Hello everybody, so this is going to be the next video in the Beginner's Guide to Anvil. This one is going to be directing towards your seasonal upgrade tree. These are located to the far right of the main hub of the game. This is where you're going to be spending your seasonal upgrade tokens that you're going to be acquiring whilst playing the game. You get these from various different sources. If I come down here, you can see the battle pass. You can get some from the battle pass. This is completely free. You don't have to spend any money at all. They learned their lesson in the past, even though in the past, when the pass was something that you purchased with real money, all the player power came from the free version anyway. But that being said, you get your seasonal upgrade points from this pass, as well as doing the seasonal mode. Once you've done the seasonal mode within Anvil, which is this extra seasonal challenge over here on the right side of your options when you go to start your runs, you'll also have a challenge reward in the top right. When you're on this screen, you just press Y, or if you're playing on mouse and keyboard, you press R. And what this does is brings up this. When you complete your runs, you only have to get to 10 to get your full rewards, but you can see you also get some seasonal upgrade points from here. So if you manage to get to the desired 210, finish your run, make sure you back out from the run, you don't continue your run, and then you come through here and you can press A on these and unlock these rewards that you have acquired. This is a great way of getting some breaker points as well, and a great way of getting some bonus crons too. With that being said, now that you know how to get seasonal upgrade points, how do you spend them, and what would you really want to be looking for? You can see in the top right, I've reset all mine so we can go through this together. When starting Anvil, you're giving free options here, and it can be kind of daunting to kind of figure out where you want to put your points and where is technically the best way of going through this tree. You have your offensive tree on the far left, your defensive tree in the middle, and your strategic tree on the far right. Much like the previous video when I was talking about your stat page, these don't accurately represent too much about how much power you get from these in comparison to each other when you look at it from a DPS standpoint. If you do invest any points into these trees and you're not happy with where you've put your points, do not fret. You can, like for example, if I just randomly do this, you can reset your tree with this option at the bottom you see down here, and it's absolutely free and costs nothing, and you get all your points refunded back to you. So let's now talk about the tree and cover it. So you have your offensive nodes. These are going to be similar to when you look at your stat page. These are just going to be things that just give you raw damage in very, very simple terms. You have your weapon power node. This is going to give you 1% weapon power per point. You can put up to 10 points in this. So in total, 10% weapon power. You can put 1% skill power in these, and then you've got your skill cooldowns, you've got your kill power. This is going to give you attack power every time you kill something, stacking up to 100 times. And this is going to give you crit chance and some crit damage, as well as ignore enemy defense. This is just some very straightforward ways of gaining damage. To be able to unlock these branching nodes, it does require you to put points into the previous node. So if I hover over weapon power here, you can see it says the next point I put in will give me 1% weapon power on the far right of the screen, and it says required none. But if we come over to skill power, you're going to see it says it gives me 1% skill power, but I'm required to have at least weapon power level 5 to do so. If we come down to one of these nodes, like regeneration in the middle tree, you're going to see it's a similar thing where you have an option of where you put your points. It's very simple, very straightforward, and very intuitive of how it works. I would like them in the future, if they do manage to see these videos, to potentially buff some of these nodes and to make them a little bit more impactful, because as it stands right now, you will feel the difference of when you do and don't have them, but they're not that impactful to the point where they're going to really, really be the difference between you succeeding in a run and not succeeding in a run. They're just kind of quality of life nodes, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it also means the incentive to actually chase and level up is not as high once you get past certain points of the game. So let's start. Like I just mentioned, this is the offensive tree. You have this defensive tree in the middle. This is going to be pertaining towards stuff that just naturally helps you survive throughout your runs. So you've got health 1 here. Health 1 is going to be an additive bonus. This is going to give you just a flat increase to your breaker's health pool. So as you can see, it says next is 1000, and you can put 10 points in here, so you can get 10,000 total health from this health 1. And then you've got health 2 on the far right. This is going to give you 2% of your maximum health. Now again, all stat values in the game are calculated from your base values of your breaker. So for example, if I open up my stat page, you can see here these blue lines. These are the base values. So if I was to get 2% health, it's not going to give me much health, as it's only going to really be taking from this, whereas the 1000 health is going to be much, much better. Then you've got stuff like melee damage reduction and range damage taken reduction. These are just going to help you reduce damage you take from specific damage sources. These can stack up 10 times, so 10%. Not really noticeable, but we're mainly going to take these later just to be able to branch through our tree anyway. Regeneration. This is a node where you can only put 1 point into it and it's only got 1 level, but it's going to give you some health regen. And this is going to be actually noticeable in your runs. If you take some damage here and there and you get hit by, say, the burn status on some of these bosses, this is going to help you recover your health without having to purchase health packs or other relics to do that, really. So this is going to save you money and really be impactful in your runs. You have recovery amount just below that, and this is going to just increase the amount that you're healing to yourself, not how much healing you're doing to other players. If the other players want healing increase, they're going to have to put points in this stat themselves. But this is also noticeable, as this does double dip with the regeneration, as well as also the other healing effects within the game. Then you have Gain Shield just below that. This is one of the best nodes in the game. I'm not going to say it's the best node. There is one node that I would deem better than this, but this is probably the second best node in the game, in my opinion. This is going to give you a shield for 10% of your health. How much shield it gives you is completely irrelevant. The fact that it gives you a shield is very, very powerful. If you didn't know, shields within Anvil, they do give you a layer of one-shot protection, and what this means is, as long as you have a shield active, you will not die to a single hit. So if you have 30,000 health and you have a shield of 10% of that, and say your total health value will then will be around, I don't know, 35,000 or 32,000, something like that, and then you get hit by a boss for, say, 400,000, that clearly exceeds how much shield you have and how much health you have. But instead of just flat outright killing you, it will instead take you to a very low amount of health and give you a chance to get away and recover. This is really, really nice and a very, very strong way of surviving, and this is why we don't care about our defense stats too much, but we do care about shields within Anvil. Then we come over strategic. This is just going to be purely utility-based things, and ironically, is also, technically because of the way these things function, the best way of gaining damage within Anvil. So, you have your survival skill cooldown stuff. This is going to be very nice of lowering your cooldowns. It's going to help you get your gauge bar back up faster for when you're doing your guards. This is going to be great for when you're playing someone like Draken and you need to get your cooldowns back to be able to counterattack more, or just generally survive better. This also helps with the cooldown recovery rate of stuff like Uzi's teleports and Shuri's teleports on their survival skill, and Lightning and Jungler's dash survival skills. It's just a very nice node and very powerful in helping you survive. You have movement speed to the right of it. This is not that great, but as a stat, movement speed is pretty nice. It does help you strafe out of some hits and get safe basically a little bit easier to completely avoid getting hit in the first place. So definitely don't overlook movement speed, but we're not going to prioritize it too heavily. We have buff adapt in this tree as well. This is going to improve the duration of applied buffs to your character. What I mean by this is you have stuff like Shuri with her Gust Wind, which increases attack speed of all allies and herself for a small duration. Buff adapt will make those type of effects last longer, as well as the effects that come from your Breaker's skill upgrades, where you will use something like Jungler's Crossfire, apply a buff to yourself to give yourself skill power for 10 seconds or something on those lines. Buff adapt will make those effects also last longer on you. Very nice node. Do not sleep on this node either. And also a slight disclaimer here as well. Buff adapt does affect the duration of shields, so that means these shield effects here will also last longer. We have weapon drop rate. Unfortunately, this is what the node I think in the seasonal upgrade tree completely needs a full rework. They need to replace this. Weapon drop rate percentages in Anvil just aren't consistent at all. You can increase your drop rate to be like really high with the relics and with this node as well, and you're still not going to feel really the impact of that stat. It's just not good. I would highly recommend, and if they do see this, make this something like increase the amount of currency you can receive from breaking boxes or something like that. It's still not a great idea to replace this node, but it's still going to be much more impactful than having this. To the right, you will see status effect a duration increase, and then up here on the left, you'll see a status effect duration decrease. So the one on the bottom right will affect the duration of the statuses that you apply to the enemy, and the ones over here will reduce the status effect duration of the effects applied to yourself. This means if you get burnt or frozen by a boss or petrified by a boss, that poison puddle that you accidentally stepped in and got poisoned, this will just reduce how long those effects are going to last on you. Where this one is going to increase those effects that you put on the bosses, really giving you big uptime on your big old multiplier relics that you have for your status effect targets and your shocker targets. You can also double dip this node with a relic that you could achieve in your games as well, called Status Effect Scope, which does the exact same thing, but stacks with this effect. So you can have your Petrify effects on someone like Sandman last a very long time, as well as Shuri. It's very, very nice. Definitely a node that we like to prioritize. Then at the very bottom, we have Resources. This is the node that I personally think is the strongest within Anvil. I mention this a lot. I'm scared it's going to end up getting nerfed just due to how much I hype this node up. But you acquire 100 resources on entering the first planet of a galaxy. This doesn't sound like much, but hear me out. You end up starting with 100 extra coins in your runs. So this means you start on your Cerny run, you have 100 coins. This means the first box that you find within your runs, you will guarantee have enough money to be able to purchase something like a tier 1 relic after killing a couple of enemies. You'll guarantee being able to afford a tier 3 relic by the time you get to the shops. It's really, really strong. If you manage to get to something like Campanella, which is the third galaxy in your run, this is going to have a shop terminal at the start of your run, where usually you're going to be your weakest. Having 100 coins allows you to buy a weapon of tier 1 quality from that box, or even save up and be able to buy a tier 3 weapon or a tier 3 relic after you kill that first boss. This is really, really powerful and can help you really accelerate the power you have at the start of your run, and we abuse this a lot when it comes to speedrunning. So now that you know what all these nodes do, how would I personally recommend pathing your nodes? So we're going to start by trying to get down to resources as fast as possible for all the reasons I just mentioned. So we're going to put 5 points into survival skill cooldown. This is just going to help us survive better, so this is nice, but we have to do this anyway just to be able to get down to resources. Buff adapt. Again, we're going to do this just to get towards resources, but we're not sad about the fact that we're going to have our boss last longer. Weapon drop rate, unfortunately, we are sad about having to put points in here, but it's a necessary evil to be able to get to resources. Now that we have resources, we are happy. We are going to be starting our runs with more money. We're going to be very powerful. From here, we're then going to actually come over to the defensive tree. By putting points into the defensive tree second, it's going to give us more damage than if we put it in offensive. Why is that? Now, think about what I just said about resources and how important it is to have extra money at the start of your runs. If you now have extra money so you don't have to worry about buying healing either, you're having even more money to invest into damage relics, as well as having more starting health in your runs to scale into relics like Necklace of Giant Strength. Necklace of Giant Strength is a relic that gives you attack power based on how much health you have. Very, very strong. So with that in mind, we're going to put 5 points into health 1. This is also going to make you tankier within your runs as well, and as a newer player, the biggest issue you're going to have whilst learning is not surviving long enough to actually get to learn what you've done wrong. By being able to invest in this defensive stuff and still get damage from this, whilst also just surviving more, you're going to be able to learn those boss mechanics and really crank down on all the mechanical issues that you're going to have as a player to hold you back. Now, we put 5 points into melee reduction here, just so we can branch across and come across to our regeneration node. This is going to give us the healing that I mentioned previously. It's going to make us buy less health packs in our run whilst learning. This is going to mean as well that we can now skip picking up the Ambrosia health regen relics too. This is very, very nice. Just by putting 1 point in this node, we have essentially just saved ourselves 180 coins in a run, at least. Coming down to recovery amount. We're going to put 5 in here. This is going to just boost our healing, like I said, but we're also going to use this as a way to branch down into getting Gain Shield. Putting 5 points into Gain Shield here. Now we have a layer of one-shot protection. Those mistakes we make that usually end our run in a blink of an eye will not be as negative towards us. We're going to have a chance to learn from what we just did. We're going to know now that Sand Shark attack that just one-hit KO'd us. We're going to look out for that next time, and we have a shield ready for when we do that. So if we do get clipped, it's not the end of the world. We're going to just now move back and start playing safer. From this point on, we have a lot of coins left, but at this point, you will be pretty tanky and pretty survivable, and this is a very good place to get yourself at when it comes to your seasonal upgrade tree. if you've got to this point and you're still not done with Campanella 3, it's mostly going to be an issue of just mechanics and learning what you're doing wrong, and it doesn't really matter about the seasonal upgrade tree to what's happened. But if you're still wondering how I would personally suggest finishing out your tree from there, I would then move over into the offensive tree so I can start picking up stuff like the kill power at the bottom here. Now we're going to put 5 points into weapon power just so we can unlock the rest of this tree. At this point, you have to ask yourself, what breakers are you going to be playing more? The reason I say this is because this node right here, penetration, is what I would usually pick up next, but this entirely depends on what breakers you prefer to play. If you prefer to play someone like Sandman a lot and you could defense shred, this node is no longer needed for you. But if you play someone like Jungler a lot, or Lightning, Liner, you like to play Shuri, Uzi's really fun, you really like the hyperactive playstyle, none of these characters have a way of naturally defense shredding in their kits, so penetration becomes very, very nice, and I would suggest maxing this out as fast as possible at this point. This will give us 30% ignore to the enemy's defense. This is going to help, how I mentioned in that stat video. It's going to let you ignore some of that damage reduction that boss is going to give themselves, as well as just cut through the tankiness that they have. It's very, very nice. Now, personally, I do not like this offensive tree apart from this penetration node. You do not gain much in terms of DPS from this tree, especially when you compare it to how much damage you're gaining from the defense tree and the strategic tree, from how much money they're going to be saving you in the run. But you will end up having enough points to maximize everything in your trees anyway. After this point, I personally would suggest coming up pick critical damage. This is a node that no matter what build you're playing, crit chance and crit damage are very important. So these are going to be things that you just want to naturally pick up. If you don't need to pick up penetration, I suggest just coming over here and doing this next anyway. Then I'd come down and pick up the 5 points of crit chance. Now, what this is going to do is allow us to pick up kill power. Kill power, this used to be bugged in the past and has soon been fixed, so now it works properly. It gives you 1 attack power for every kill, stacking up to 100 times, so this is just a 100 extra attack power. This helps you scale your damage much smoother throughout a run. This will reward you when you're going through places like Symphonia, as well as your seasonal runs, as well as your Xerny runs. Doesn't help as much in Campanella. You don't have many scenarios to actually stack this up when it's just bosses after bosses, but either way, we're not going to be sad. This is going to help us when we're farming out our relics anyway. From this point, you kind of want to put points into skill power. Unfortunately, with Anvil, around 80% of all builds within Anvil that have high success rate and do the most damage are mostly skill-based builds. I have various builds on this channel going over every breaker and a preferred play style in a speedrun setting. If you're curious about how to build your breakers and stuff like that, I highly recommend checking out that breaker specifics video. But after skill power, we'll then come down and put points into skill cooldown. And we'll actually max out skill cooldown. I did mention in the stat video as well how important it is to get skill cooldown for your builds, as even if you're doing a weapon build, this is going to allow you to just make sure you always have your buffs active and be able to do DPS when you need to do DPS. From here, we are going to come over and pick up status effect and max out status effect. Like I said, having your statuses last longer is very important for your damage. You basically have now touched on pretty much everything that's important within Anvil. Where you put the rest of your points is completely up to you. I personally would highly recommend maxing out health 1 and health 2, so you can scale that health into something like Necklace of Giant Strength, so I'll do that now. And then we'll put 10 points into health 2. And then I would suggest coming over and putting stuff into movement speed. The rest of the points you have now are not going to give you any more big DPS increase, so you can just work your way through and start capping out the rest of these nodes, starting with like stuff like buff adapt, and then survival skill, and then finish capping out the skill power tree and the offensive stuff in the offensive tree, I mean. But it's at this point within the game where you're not really going to feel the impact of putting more points into these nodes. So it's not that high of a priority to really worry about min-maxing and getting the most out of this tree past the point of picking up status effect, basically. Like, once you've got your resource node, you've got your gain shield, you've got penetration, and you've got status effect maxed out, it's like, you're not going to feel the impact of the rest of this tree too much. We've got 30 points left, so we're going to pretty much just dump them in the nodes that can get points left in them, because there's really no reason not to. But I hope this has been a quick video and makes it a little bit easier in understanding why I path my tree like I do when I was leveling my account, and why I pathed like this when I was leveling my second account over on Xbox as well as why I provided the screenshots on Reddit back when I used to post more frequently about the world record times that we had with all the different setups, etc., and how I pathed and why the seasonal upgrade tree never seemed to change back when we had less points. That's because of just how impactful those nodes are in comparison to the rest and all those things. As a beginner player, I hope this was also insightful in how you kind of want to think about your strategic tree and how impactful these nodes are in terms of a damage standpoint and not just the defensive value that they offer you. And that's kind of how you want to be looking at your runs when you play Anvil 2, is look at your relics as a way of gaining damage. If you don't see a way that relic is going to be giving you damage, it's usually better than to avoid getting that relic. Thank you very much for watching, guys, and I hope to see you in the next one.